All right, there it is. It is now official. Good evening, everyone. I'm Errol Barnett at the CBS Broadcast Center here in New York City. We've just ended watching a CBS News special report as President Trump officially signs his so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. It is now the law of the land. President Trump signed his domestic policy legislation during an Independence Day ceremony at the White House, and the president touted the enormity of this measure before signing it into law.
I've never seen people so happy in our country because of that, because so many different groups of people are being taken care of, the military and civilians of all types, jobs of all types. So many things are being added that we wouldn't even have time to discuss them.
CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now from the White House. He's been there all day, baking in the sun. Looks like you have some shade now, Aaron. The president made extended...
A little shade now, yeah.
A bit of shade. The president made extended remarks, taking up most of this hour before signing the bill. A massive political accomplishment for him. Help us understand what his message was before signing the bill.
Yeah, Errol, good to be with you on this 4th of July. I think one of the most notable descriptions from the president came as he started talking about what he has called the, quote, One Big Beautiful Bill. He said it is, quote, the greatest victory yet of his second term. And that's in part because it is kind of the vessel for a lot of the priorities that he shared on the campaign trail when it comes to extending and making permanent his 2017 tax cuts, when it comes to reducing or eliminating taxes on tips or overtime, though that will be temporary, when it comes to increasing funding for the military in terms of at the southern border, when it comes to construction wall building. A lot of the big agenda items are fulfilled through this bill that he just signed around 5:47 a couple minutes ago. And throughout his remarks, he started to make the sales pitch for it to congressional Republicans who are here on the White House South Lawn, acknowledging that that is the next step politically when it comes to this bill now that it is signed. How do members sell it back in their districts when they're in their districts for recess throughout the rest of the summer, going into the fall, and especially going into the 2026 congressional midterms?
Yeah, that also jumped out to me, Aaron. The president at one point saying that, to listeners, that everyone will lie about this bill. He had disagreed with what he said was fear-mongering from critics who said people will die from the bill. He says that's a lie. People will lie about this bill. Everyone's going to live. If you hear anything from Democrats on this bill, it is a lie. Why do you think the president strategically made that point before signing the bill?
Yeah, he said, quote, if you see anything negative, it's all a con job. And that's kind of getting into the defense of this bill. Ever since it passed the House, you've heard kind of the same line from congressional Democrats that it'll hurt Medicaid access for people, that it'll hurt food assistance programs such as SNAP, and that it'll really only benefit the wealthy, the higher class Americans in terms of income. This is the president, and we saw a little bit of this during his speech in Iowa last night, getting ahead of that, trying to make the argument to Republicans saying, this is the, quote, most popular bill ever signed, trying to convince them, if they weren't already, that this is aligned with the president's campaign promises and that they can win politically on this. It'll be, a test of who is right in those November 2026 elections. But, throughout his remarks, the president thanked the congressional Republicans, naming a lot of the congressional Republican leaders who helped get this bill passed, whip the votes, though we've been told that President Trump really put a lot of political capital himself into it, making sure to call members, especially on Wednesday, the day right before this bill passed the House.
So, Aaron, let's drill into the healthcare portion of this. There's so many pieces to this bill. It's 900 pages. There are so many aspects. But when it comes to people who rely on Medicaid, for example, what changes will they see to the program? I know it's dependent on where exactly they are in the country, but what does this bill do to Medicaid?
Yeah, in part, it really depends where you are in the country, because what this bill indicates is that the federal government will spend less in terms of buying into and the cost sharing of Medicaid, Medicare programs, putting the onus on states, which could really vary if you're in a Republican state, a Democratic state, if you're in a state that has already expanded access to Medicaid versus those that have not. There's also the change on Medicaid when it comes to work requirements. Those have been made tighter. As the White House has argued, it's to combat, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse. This could really impact some of those, that get Medicaid that are unable to have a job or are unable to, fill the hours requirement that are in this bill. It makes things a little bit harder for some of them. But one thing that's important to note, a lot of those Medicaid changes will happen after the 2026 midterms due to the timing of this bill.
Really interesting detail there, Aaron, that those changes won't hit until after the midterms. Aaron Navarro on the White House South Lawn for us, just moments after President Trump signs his cornerstone legislation into law. Thank you for that, Aaron. CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now from the White House. I believe you're on the North Lawn there. Much quieter place, at least when it comes to music. You probably have news correspondents next to you making a bit of noise. Scott, help us understand some of the fact checks. You had your typical Trumpian hyperbolic language. It's the best piece of legislation ever passed. But when it comes to military recruitment, for example, I heard you do this fact check during our special report. What did the president say that went outside the bounds of what's factual?
Yeah, Errol, there was the tenor and the content at some point of a campaign rally in those remarks from the president on the South Lawn. Even though it's the July 4th holiday, military is present, and he was doing a governmental action of signing a bill into law, you heard some campaign rhetoric, some of it just baseless. He again referenced rigged elections, again alluding to his defeat in 2020 in an election that was not rigged. He also said that military recruitment imploded during the Biden administration and has been restored this year in the Trump administration. Our CBS News reporting found military recruitment was up significantly in 2024, in the last year of the Biden presidency. You also heard him say in so many words, this is the most popular bill ever signed. There is no public polling indicating this is a popular bill. Largely, the polling that's out there shows there is some consternation and cynicism from the public about this bill, and many people have no idea what's in this thing. So to call it popular right now is premature, but that's part of what they're doing here today. This signing ceremony, this triumphant image and triumphant moment could galvanize support for the legislation as it's implemented over the coming years. But both parties think this is a winner right now. Both parties think this photo op, this signing ceremony, will be a winner in next year's critical midterm elections. Democrats think this is an albatross and that they're going to get a repeat of 2018. Where Democrats made enormous inroads and seized control of the U.S. House in the first midterm of the president's first term.
And that is Scott MacFarlane reporting from the North Lawn of the White House for us. Scott, thank you very much.